England is a land whose story has shaped much of the world, and its past is often considered among the most impactful of any nation. At the height of its power, England commanded a third of the world, spreading ideas, knowledge, technology, people, trade, and yes, violence to every corner of the globe. But how did this relatively small island rise to such prominence? To understand, we must begin at the very start of its long and turbulent journey. The first modern humans arrived in what is now England around 30,000 years ago. Before them, the land had been inhabited by Neanderthals and other earlier human species, but they faded into extinction, leaving modern humans to spread across the land. They arrived by crossing a land bridge known as Doggerland, which connected Britain to the continent during the Ice Ages. That land is now beneath the North Sea, but in those days it provided an open path for migration. These people lived as hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons and living in caves or temporary shelters. We know of them through ancient cave drawings and stone tools that have survived the passing of millennia. Remarkably, genetic studies show that the modern English still carry traces of these early ancestors, with some remains dating back 9,000 years linked directly to people alive today. As time passed, rising seas swallowed Doggerland, cutting Britain off from mainland Europe. Now accessible only by sea, the island began to develop its own unique character. Waves of settlers arrived by boat, bringing with them farming and early languages that would become the ancestors of later Celtic tongues. By 3000 BC, communities were already farming, building simple homes, and even digging mines for flint, which was fashioned into weapons and tools. These early people buried their dead in barrows with goods to accompany them to the afterlife, a sign that religion and social hierarchy were already taking root. A new wave of settlers arrived after 3000 BC, known to archaeologists as the Beaker people for their distinctive pottery. They brought with them new customs and technologies and slowly replaced or absorbed earlier groups. These people built villages, farmed the land, and left behind some of the most enduring monuments in human history. Chief among them stands the mighty Stonehenge, built on the Salisbury Plain around 2200 BC. This circle of stones has puzzled and fascinated for centuries. It may have been a ritual site, a meeting place, a calendar, or a burial ground, and perhaps at different times it was all of these. The stones were dragged from as far away as South Wales, an astonishing feat for people with no modern machines. To build such a monument required a society with organization, surplus food to support workers, and leaders who could command and direct such efforts. Nearby burials like that of the Amesbury Archer suggest powerful chieftains or priests lived in the area with wealth and influence enough to attract followers and visitors from across Britain. Through the Bronze Age, these communities grew into warrior societies. Weapons and fortified hilltop settlements show that conflict was a constant concern. Yet religion and ritual remained central as rivers and sacred landscapes became sites for offerings to the gods. England was already divided by geography, with the north more suited to livestock and the fertile south rich in farming. The Thames Valley became the wealthiest region, connecting easily with continental Europe through trade. English traders reached as far as Greece, Egypt, and beyond. Tin was their most precious export, since it was essential for making bronze when combined with copper. Mines in Cornwall produced tin that found its way into weapons, armor, and tools across the ancient world. English tin armed Egyptian soldiers and Greek warriors, while at home it decorated chiefs and priests with bronze treasures. Trade and warfare gave rise to an aristocratic class who wielded great influence over their people. Around the 7th century BC, a new force arrived from across the sea. These were the Celts, a people skilled in ironworking and warfare. Their iron swords and tools were far superior to bronze, and they quickly dominated the land. They brought with them the hill fort, a massive fortified settlement built atop high ground. From these strongholds, Celtic kings and chieftains ruled over surrounding lands. The greatest of them all was Maiden Castle in Dorset, covering nearly 50 acres and housing a thriving population. The Celts established kingdoms and an aristocracy of warriors and priests. Their priests, known as druids, were custodians of knowledge, law, and religion. They believed the land itself was sacred, filled with spirits that guided the people. Their art was marked by flowing curved designs that remain iconic to this day. The Celts were not unknown to the outside world. In 325 BC, a Greek explorer named Pytheas landed on Britain, which he called Britannic or Britannia. He visited the tin mines of Cornwall and described a land of many kings and independent tribes. Over time, larger Celtic kingdoms emerged and brought stability to their people. By the 1st century BC, Britain was dotted with towns, villages, and strongholds under the rule of many different kings. Yet it would not remain free for long.
Across the sea lay the greatest power of the age Rome.
In 55 BC, Julius Caesar crossed the Channel with his legions. The Romans knew little of Britain beyond rumors of its metals and warriors. Caesar fought the local tribes who used simple chariots and undisciplined tactics, but his campaigns were cut short by rebellions in Gaul. He returned the next year, won victories, and accepted tribute from some kings but ultimately withdrew. Rome would not return in force until nearly a century later. In 43 AD, Emperor Claudius, seeking glory and stability, ordered a full conquest. Roman legions stormed the southern coast and pressed inland, defeating tribe after tribe. Some kings sided with Rome while others resisted fiercely. One such leader, Caratacus, waged war for years before finally being betrayed and captured. With his defeat, Britain was absorbed into the Roman Empire, and its fate changed forever. Yet not all accepted Roman rule. In 61 AD, the warrior Queen Boudicca rose in rebellion after Roman officials seized her lands and abused her family. She gathered a vast army said to number in the hundreds of thousands. Her forces destroyed Colchester and burned London to the ground, killing tens of thousands. But in the end, the Roman legions stood firm. In a decisive battle, the disciplined Romans crushed the rebels, slaughtering them without mercy. Boudicca either poisoned herself or died of illness, but her revolt became legend. Rome rebuilt stronger than before. They laid down roads, founded cities, and established order that lasted for centuries. Roman Britain was transformed. Great towns like London, York, and Colchester grew with stone houses, baths, theaters, and temples. Roads linked every corner of the land, allowing soldiers, merchants, and officials to travel quickly. Villas dotted the countryside where wealthy landowners lived in luxury with heated floors, mosaics, and fine art. Bath became famous for its healing springs, attracting visitors from across the empire. Most people, however, remained farmers living in rural villages, paying taxes and supplying grain or wool for the Roman market. Sheep farming boomed, making English wool a prized commodity for centuries to come. Metal mines also thrived, providing lead, tin, and even silver for Roman use. For 300 years, Britain was a stable province of Rome, though the north was always troublesome. Raids from tribes in Scotland forced the construction of Hadrian's Wall in 122 AD, a vast barrier stretching 73 miles across the island. It marked the northern frontier of Roman civilization and stood as a symbol of power. But Rome itself was weakening.
In the 3rd century, barbarian, invasion, civil wars and economic troubles shook the empire.
Britain suffered repeated raids from Saxons, Picts, and Scots. The so-called Great Conspiracy of 367 saw the province nearly overrun until order was restored. Even so, Rome never fully recovered. Troops were withdrawn to fight wars on the continent, leaving Britain vulnerable. Ambitious generals like Magnus Maximus and Constantine III declared themselves emperors in Britain and marched their armies away to Europe. By 409, the last Roman soldiers and officials departed, leaving Britain to fend for itself. Roman towns and villas soon fell into decay. Roads crumbled and the centralized power of Rome vanished. Yet its legacy endured in ruins in Christianity and in the idea of law and order that would echo into the future. From here, England would face new invaders, waves of Saxons, Angles, and Jutes, who would carve out kingdoms in the ruins of Rome. But that is another chapter in the long saga of this island. What began as scattered tribes grew into a land of kings, rebels, warriors, and emperors. From Stonehenge to Hadrian's Wall, from Celtic druids to Roman magistrates, England had already lived many lives before the English nation even truly existed. Its story was only just beginning, a story that would one day shape the world.